Something happened to me a few years ago that I still can't shake. I don't talk about it much because, honestly, I don't like remembering it, but I think about it all the time, especially when I hear about other school incidents in the news. So here goes. This happened when I was a senior in high school. It was late October, right before Halloween, and the school was buzzing with talks about parties and costumes. It was just a normal Thursday. I remember this clearly because my English teacher had a test that day, and I spent all morning stressing over it. Third period had just started. I was in my psychology class, sitting near the back of the room, doodling in the margins of my notebook while our teacher, Mr. Callahan, wrote something on the board. I wasn't really paying attention. I remember glancing at the clock, counting down the minutes until lunch. Then, the intercom crackled. Students and staff, we are now in lockdown. This is not a drill. That got my attention. Everyone went still. Mr. Callahan froze for a second before snapping into action. Okay, everyone, move to the back corner. Now. We all scrambled to our feet, knocking chairs over in the process. My heart was pounding, but I kept telling myself it was probably just a drill, even though the announcement had specifically said that it wasn't. I huddled against the wall with my classmates, pressing myself as small as possible. Someone whispered, "What's going on?" But no one had an answer. Mr. Callahan locked the door, turned off the lights, and pulled the blinds shut over the windows. The room was cast in near total darkness, just the glow from the clock and our phones casting eerie light. Then we waited. At first, it was just silence. But then we heard something. Footsteps. Not the kind of casual, everyday footsteps you hear in the hallway. These were slow, heavy, purposeful. My breathing went shallow. My legs felt numb. Someone near me was shaking so badly I could feel their movement against my arm. The footsteps stopped outside our door. The door handle. A girl across from me let out a tiny, muffled sob, and my stomach twisted. Mr. Callahan shot us all a look that clearly meant, "Be quiet." Whoever was outside didn't go away. They just stood there. I could barely hear it, but there was something, a faint, raspy breathing sound, right outside. Then, 3 knocks. Soft, slow, rhythmic. I was so tense my muscles ached. I remember staring at the bottom of the door, at the tiny sliver of light from the hallway. A shadow passed over it, a long, slow movement. Whoever was out there was crouching down, watching us through a tiny crack in the blind. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run, but I didn't move. None of us did. Then, as suddenly as it started, the shadow was gone. The footsteps faded down the hall. We stayed frozen. Minutes passed, or maybe it was hours. I lost track of time. My body was stiff. My foot had gone completely numb, but I didn't dare move. Then, sirens. A voice on the intercom. "The lockdown has been lifted. Teachers, please keep students in classrooms until further instruction." We slowly, shakily stood up. Mr. Callahan flipped the lights back on, his face pale. Some people were crying. Others just looked dazed. The principal came over the intercom again, this time sounding a little shaken. She told us that a man had been spotted near the school with a weapon. Someone outside had called the police, and they had searched the building. They never found him. That was the part that haunted me the most. They never found him. Whoever he was, whatever he wanted, he had just disappeared. Later, I heard from a friend that another class had heard him whispering through the door, just mumbling nonsense. Another teacher swore she had seen someone in the parking lot before the lockdown was called, just standing there by the fence, staring at the school. To this day, I don't know what he wanted, but I'll never forget those knocks. I wasn't even supposed to be at school that day. It was a Friday in early March, and I had planned to skip. Senioritis was hitting me hard, and I had convinced myself I needed a mental health day. But my mom caught me trying to fake a stomach ache and forced me to go. Fast forwarding, the school day was normal until fourth period. I was in my photography class, half listening to the teacher explain shutter speed while messing around on my phone. The classroom was in the far back of the school, near the art rooms, where there weren't many windows. Suddenly, the intercom crackled. Students and staff, we are now in lockdown. This is not a drill. There was a beat of silence before people started reacting. A few nervous laughs, some whispering. But Mr. Langley, our teacher, didn't hesitate. He immediately turned off the lights and motioned for us to move to the storage closet. At first, I wasn't scared. We'd done so many drills before that it felt routine. But then, as we crammed into the tiny supply closet, something about Mr. Langley's face unsettled me. He looked tense. Too tense for this just to be a precaution. He quietly locked the door and whispered, "No one makes a sound." That's when the fear started to creep in. We were packed together, backs against the shelves filled with camera equipment and old binders. The air was hot, stuffy. Someone beside me was breathing too fast. I pulled out my phone to text my mom. Just a quick, "Hey, we're in lockdown. I'm okay." But I stopped when I saw I already had a text from my friend Sam. "Dude, someone's in the school." My stomach dropped. I typed back, "What are you talking about?" She responded almost immediately. "Someone with a gun. I think I saw him. I was in the bathroom when the lockdown started. I'm hiding in the stall." I felt lightheaded. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. Then, footsteps. Loud, echoing, coming down the hallway. My breath hitched. The footsteps weren't rushed. They were slow, heavy. They stopped right outside our door. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Then, knocking. Soft at first, then harder. Someone in the closet whimpered. Mr. Langley shot them a warning look, pressing a finger to his lips. Then, something happened that still makes me feel sick when I think about it. A voice. A deep, raspy male voice, just on the other side of the door. "I know you're in there." I thought I was going to pass out. The door handle jiggled, hard. Then, silence. Long, awful silence. I didn't realize I was crying until after I felt a tear run down the side of my cheek. No one moved. No one even breathed. Then, footsteps. moving away. It felt like hours before we finally heard the police. More shouting, heavy boots pounding against the floors, sirens outside. And then finally, the lockdown was lifted. We stumbled out of the closet, all of us shaking. Mr. Langley still had his hands balled into fists, his knuckles white. The police were everywhere. They led us out of the school in small groups, telling us to keep our heads down. When I got outside, I saw the SWAT team standing near the main entrance. An ambulance was parked nearby. I found Sam in the crowd. She looked pale, her hands trembling as she clutched her phone. She told me that while she was hiding in the bathroom, she saw him. A man in all black, walking past the stalls. She stayed completely silent, feet pulled up onto the toilet seat, praying he wouldn't notice her. The worst part? The police never caught him. They searched the entire school, every room, every hallway, but he was gone. No one knew how he got in. No one knew how he left. To this day, no one knows who he was. But I still dream about that moment. I don't think about high school much anymore. I've done my best to move on. But every now and then, I'll catch myself glancing at windows, checking, just in case. Because ever since that day, I can't shake the feeling that someone might be watching. This happened when I was a junior. It was early spring, right after lunch, and I was sitting in my AP history class, half asleep, while my teacher, Mr. Bennett, droned on about some war. Our classroom was at the far end of the school, on the ground floor, with a long row of windows that looked out into the courtyard. I wasn't really paying attention when the lockdown started. The announcement crackled through the speakers, sharp and urgent. Students and staff, we are now in lockdown. This is not a drill. The energy in the room shifted immediately. People exchanged nervous glances. A few kids laughed at first, but Mr. Bennett's face went pale. Move. Now. His voice was low, firm. Chairs scraped against the floor as we rushed toward the corner of the room, away from the windows and the door. Mr. Bennett locked the door, turned off the lights, and shut the blinds, but one of them got stuck halfway down. I remember that detail vividly because in the moment, it didn't seem important. It would soon. At first, everything was silent. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear anything else. I pulled out my phone and texted my mom. Just a simple, I love you. She responded right away. What's wrong? I didn't answer. A girl next to me started to cry softly, her shoulders shaking. I squeezed my eyes shut. Maybe it was just a drill. Maybe a light knocking on the window. My body went cold. At first, I thought I imagined it. But then, it was coming from the window with the broken blind, the one that was stuck halfway down. And then someone whispered, just loud enough for us to hear, I see you. I couldn't stop myself. I looked. There was a man standing outside. He was pressed against the glass, grinning. His face was pale and stretched too tight over his bones. His eyes were wide, bloodshot, unblinking. He had thin, scraggly facial hair and a long, deep scar running from the corner of his mouth down to his chin. His hands were pressed flat against the window, and he was staring directly at me. I clamped a hand over my mouth, fighting back a scream. Someone else must have seen him too, because another kid let out a strangled gasp. The man just kept staring. He tilted his head slightly, like he was studying us. Then, he raised one hand, and slowly dragged a finger across his throat, grinning wider. And just like that, he was gone. He turned and walked off, disappearing into the courtyard. I thought my heart was going to explode. For the longest moment, nothing. And then, sirens, shouting, a voice on a megaphone, and finally, the lockdown was lifted. The police never could find him. They searched the school, the surrounding neighborhood, everywhere. But it was like he had vanished. Here's the thing that still keeps me up at night. No one recognized him. He wasn't a former student. He was never a staff member. No security footage ever caught how he got onto the property. But somehow, he knew exactly where to find us.